Hey everybody, welcome back to Leads Geeks. I just wanted to touch base. It's going to be another content piece on Zillow, and specifically today, it's going to be about when someone calls in and a property is pending. So this happens pretty often in our world, especially if it's under 150 or under 200,000 in our market here. And so what we're finding is a lot of agents will simply answer the phone, talk about the property, say, "Oh, that one's sold. Okay, bye," and hang up. And that's just not how we should be doing this. It doesn't serve the client. And quite frankly, it doesn't serve you or your business either. So I'm going to go to Cody first. And Cody, talk about kind of our whole philosophy on when a Zillow concierge call comes in and that property is pending.
So central to our whole model as ISAs, we want to really focus on the people and not the product. I think, especially with Zillow calls, it's really easy to get kind of caught in the rut of talking about home details and stuff like that, because that's what we're presented with. Jim Renfro, connects with me and he wants to talk about 123 Main Street, probably wants to, if he's gone through that many steps, probably wants to have a showing. And unfortunately, what we'll see is, sometimes that property might not check out. There's some more underlying stuff that needs to be talked about. Maybe we need to help them navigate that, but they see that as just a portal to get into a door. So really what's central to us is really digging deep into why are you looking, what's driving you, concerns, fears, doubts, and help bring all of that together so we can form that relationship.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's, yeah, it was explained perfectly. I don't need to even elaborate more on it. Eric Haig, so let's say you've had this conversation, someone calls in on 1212 Electric Avenue. You're talking about, tell me about those first couple of questions. What are you asking? Are you talking about the house or are you talking about them?
You get the address when you connect through Zillow Concierge. So a lot of times I will bring it up as it's connecting and I'll be able to see whether or not there's an offer on it. So I know to kind of delay that conversation. I'm not going to tell them right away, well, this home has an offer on it, but why are you looking at homes? Usually I start out with something along the lines of, yeah, I can bring up some info on that real quick. While I'm doing that, what is you looking at homes today? Are you just kind of browsing? Are you thinking about making a move sometime in the future? And try to open that gateway into their motivation. During that time, I'll also try to ask them, if they're working with an agent. So are you working with a realtor yet to help you look at places, or do you have someone in mind that you plan on going with? And, if they say, yes, we're under contract with so-and-so at home sales brokerage, whatever, then I'll just kind of get to the facts. Like, okay, yep, well, this home already has an offer. If you want more info on it, you should talk to your own agent. But if they're not, and most of the time they're not working with an agent, otherwise they would have called them directly, then you just go through that normal ISA conversation, find out their motivation, ability, timeline, and go from there. But I usually try to delay a little bit in telling them that it has an offer on it. That can also be turned into a great pain point too. If you have that time to establish that relationship and then you tell them, well, unfortunately, this one did get an offer on it. It was only on the market for 5 days. Have you been looking at any other homes that have already had offers on it? 9 times out of 10, yep, every home we call on, we're too late. And that's a great way where you can kind of leverage that pain and frustration to get them in and get them set up with an agent so that they're not missing out on these deals.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about that, Eric. So you talked about asking that question, have you missed out on others? Because that's a question I ask a lot of times too when I'm letting them know, like, hey, this one actually already has an offer on it. It was only on the market 3 days. Are you seeing that pretty often? Are you missing out on houses? And that'll also help me kind of judge where they're at in the process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. How are they doing their home shopping? Are they just going through open houses or just browsing on Zillow and calling someone when they're interested? There are a lot of different ways to kind of work that, but the biggest one is finding out why they're looking in the first place. Are they crunched for time? All of those things you can gather pretty quickly in those first couple of minutes, and that will establish the rapport and relationship with them so that they're not going to hang up the phone as soon as you say, well, this one already has an offer on it.
Okay. Cody, what are kind of your next steps when they say, no, we really haven't missed out on any others? This was the only one we're interested in.
So one of my favorite strategies, and I use this question all the time, is, we say, okay, Eric, you're looking at 123 Main Street. It looks like this place already has an offer on it. Was this the main contender for you, or were there other places that you were looking at? If they say, yeah, there are other places we're looking at, okay, tell me about those. What's driving you to these places?
Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, if that was the main contender, I'll always follow that up with, okay, well, why this one? Tell me about that. Which deviates a little bit and crosses the line into talking about home details, but it gives me a lot of pivot points in the conversation. Because usually they'll say, well, we like the layout. Well, tell me about that. Why is layout important to you? What kind of layout are you looking for? Why do you want that open concept? Why do you care about that? Well, we like to entertain, well, it was really important. We really like that location. Okay, tell me about that. Why? What are you trying to be close to? What are you looking for there? Why is that important to you? So you have a lot of like little pivot points that, kind of cross that line a little bit beyond into, talking about the house. But it gives you a lot of opportunity to then come right back to what you were, our original intention, which is, connecting with those people. So.
Okay, great. That makes sense. And so what I'm hearing from you guys is, don't talk about the house, and going deeper. Don't take things at face value. Eric, you had said something earlier that I want to elaborate on, kind of dig into a little bit, and this will go hand in hand with a content piece we're going to create a little later on. The question I always like to ask if someone says, no, I have an agent, I'm already under contract with an agent, is why are we talking? Why did this person, instead of going to their agent, call us? Because a lot of times people will say they're under contract, right? And then you'll ask them, okay, so you've signed paperwork then, huh? And they'll say no. And so a lot of times it's an excuse because they don't want to commit to someone, right? And so talk about that. Are you still on kind of digging in a little bit when people say that, or how are you going about it?
Yeah, so it's kind of risky because when you ask that question, well then, why are you calling us? Sometimes they'll be like, well, my agent's really busy. I don't want to bother them. Oh, that one I have feelings about. Or, well, my agent is out of town. They're at the lakes. They're fishing this weekend, and we really want to get in and see that. It's a way for us to possibly kind of point out ways in which they're not receiving the best service without actually saying it. You can get the client to say it. But yeah, that's a challenging one. But if they say, no, we don't have a contract, we don't have paperwork, just say, well, would you be interested in meeting with someone else? Like, this is a pretty big financial decision. Do you think it would help to at least talk to one other person and get their input? And most of the time people aren't going to say no to something like that. You're still muted, Jim.
Yep, I was. Yeah, well, I think that's a really kind of good place to end for today. I mean, Cody and Eric, why don't you give me 3 tips each? Joey, I know you just joined us here. You were in a meeting and walked in. So why don't you give us 3 tips each, Eric and Cody, on when things are pending?
I'm going to go back to kind of what Cody was touching on. You can ask about that house. Why this house? And if you start talking house details, it's very easy to turn the conversation into talking about the person by just asking why. I got off a call this morning and she said, we're looking for 5 bedrooms. Okay, why do you need 5 bedrooms? Well, we have 3 boys and we have a girl on the way. Now that conversation about 5 bedrooms is now about them, their life, how their life is changing, and why they need to find a new house to fit their needs as their life changes. So always ask why, and don't be afraid to push about it, because a lot of people will be like, well, you asked great questions, and they're going to feel more connected to you if you ask why. So if they say, we want a big yard. Okay, well, why do you want a big yard? Well, we have 2 Australian shepherds that are crazy and run around all day. Now you know about their their dogs, and people love talking about their dogs. So always ask why whenever they give you a criteria for the house that they're looking for.
Great.
I know that wasn't 3, but it was one big one.
No, it was good. Cody, what about yourself?
So Eric hit on my big one in that, understand the pivot points in a conversation where, you can bleed over into talking about the house, but bring it back. Don't just talk about the house aimlessly. And I think it's a very easy trap to fall into with Zillow calls, just because you know exactly what they want and exactly what they want to see. Another thing I would add is find a way. With Zillow calls, especially, they're really adamant about seeing that house. I mean, the number of steps they had to take just to get to this point, on the phone, and then to pick up the phone even, because that's becoming a challenge in our world, unfortunately. So understand that and find a way to make things work. Whether that's, actually getting them in for a showing, getting them in for a consult, or just providing value and information. I think that kind of comes back to our last content piece we talked about, try to come from value and connect. That's my big one.
Awesome. Well, that wraps this up for us. Just remember, everyone, let's quit talking about the house. Houses are often sold before you get introduced to people. So if that house is sold, remember to talk about the person and go from there. So from all of us over here, we're the Leads Geeks. Have a great day.